All right, all praise to the Most High Yahweh, and to His Son, my brother, Amashiach Yahweh Shai. Peace and blessings to my brothers and sisters from the Israelite tribes. All right, in this video, we are going to discuss uh, the name of the channel. So, the name of the channel is Israelite Dna. That is not my name. Um, yes, I do have a Hebrew Israelite name, but this is just dealing with the name of the channel and the content that I tend to study about or look into, dealing with my people. And DNA is just dealing with an overall study and understanding that I have of my people. So, real quick, we're going to just get into the whole information about DNA real quick. So, the Israelite DNA is dealing with a certain group of E haplogroup of people. So right now we're gonna just talk about the paternal DNA. So the paternal grouping of Israelite men would be marked as E-M2 and or E1B1A. So those are your common markers for the haplogroup E, dealing with a subclade among the E group called E-M2. And the reason why you tend to see like E-M2 or E-V38 and other defining mutations is because too many African Americans are looking into DNA, and this DNA is a unique signature mark of Israelite people, and they've been trying to hide the information from us for a while, and they didn't want to disclose or publish the information about this, so they tend to use numerous amount of the defining mutations to label this major haplogroup. So you have E1B1A, 1A, that would be the beginning grouping or branch of the group. So you move from the E1B1A ancestor to the descendant. And all these subclades or branches, they tend to be letter and number or number and letter. So it just varies with the that information. And also, when you get into the defining mutation stuff, the defining mutation is dealing with a protein count in a regional laboratory that the results was done in. So, so you have places around the world that the your protein is assigned to, and so that's how they come up with that information. So, and now for the women, our sisters, your women mitochondrial DNA would be L2, any of those L2 branches. So L2 has a lot of subclades and branches. As long as you are part of that branch of grouping of women, you are a Israelite. So now we go back to the men because at the moment I am not a expert with the mtDNA, so I'm still studying it, and there's some good things about it and some bad things, and then uh, when you start to understand how they try to cover up something dealing with certain DNA groups, you just have to go into a deeper detail and find as much information about that stuff. So I'm having a problem with the mtDNA with that, but um, other than standing certain mutations, other than that, I'm coming along with that understanding. Um, but yeah, I'm a better understanding person towards the YDNA because like I'm a guy and I had to like double check on the information that was provided to me about the E1B1A. So it took me a while to understand that. So it should take me just as long to understand the mtDNA. So we have that out the way. So the E1B1A grouping to the E1B1A 1A grouping to the E1B1A 1A 1H grouping. This 1H group is your last branch of Israel. So after that, there's no other grouping of people dealing with our nation of people. After that, you enter into E1B, and E1B is the ancestor, and then after that is E1B, 1B, 1B, and that's the descendant point. And the descendant points go all the way down the chart like ours, and that's how you understand the different groups of people within the Abrahamic setup, and that's the E, the overall E haplogroup is your Abrahamic grouping of people, which are all Shemitic people. So we got that out the way. So now we get into some other stuff. So this is just a overall decent sized map that I had of Africa, and it just happened to have mtDNA graphs or charts on it. But other than that, I just needed this to explain real quick about the Israelites. So when I or other people associate ourselves with Israel, they tend to think of white people, Caucasian people, Israel, the landmass itself, and they don't think about a person or a father or a man that had children. Even though, we tend to get another name as children of Israel associated with Israelites, ITE is just referring to descendants of. So Israelite is just the descendants of Israel, not the landmass, but the man himself. So we just have to better educate people on different things and terms and information, and the sooner the better. We can all be on the same page with the whole Israel DNA and Israelite and so on. So right here um, shows you Egypt and Sinai. So within this region, we have to remember that Egypt and Sinai was always connected. They just not recently put a canal right there to divide the strip, that little Gaza Strip area. So when you understand that Egypt and the Near East region always been connected and recently just been divided, then you better understand the whole understanding of Israel, the people, Abraham, and all the other content of things. So also the other thing is all the groups of people that lived in this region, the Ishmaelites, the Canaanites, the other Hermetic groupings of people, all those people wasn't in this region long enough to be uh, considered native to this region. So all these people was nomadic people. They moved from areas to areas in between this region that we call Near East, but is actually a part of Africa to other parts of Asia. And then you have other parts of Europe. You have that Euro Asia part. So when you understand that these people migrated in this massive region, then you better understand the whole concept of Israel being uh, a source group of the Nile Valley region and the Great Lakes region. So Israel, the man, was named Jacob. Jacob became Israel, and his family relocated to Egypt because of famine. And hopefully, everybody knows the story. And Israel, he died in Egypt. His family, due to the relocation process and them finding one of their sons, Joseph, one of their brothers, they lived there for hundreds of years. They became slaves there for hundreds of years. Therefore, them being children and then being a part of a family, not yet a nation, but then they grew into tribes, and then those tribes became nations of people. Then you understand that this family group actually became people, period, within that source zone of the Nile River Valley in Egypt. So that's where you get your other part of DNA information, your content, that protein count, um, taken from the land and the diet and the consistent state of being settled at that point. So once you understand that about the nucleotide process, then you'll understand, other things about DNA, because it's really um, trace mineral content and protein centered in a region, and even if it's in a region, and then you have like another haplogroup, which we do have another haplogroup. We have several haplogroups in the region. You can still uh, tell the difference from group to group about those different um, mutations in the proteins. So all the Israelites lived in Egypt for hundreds of years before relocating to the land of Canaan. Now, Canaan is dealing with Hamitic people, ancient African people, ancient native African people. So they lived in this region along with the Ishmaelites. But remember, all these people was nomadic people. So none of them but Israel was settled in the region longer than all these other groups. So once you understand that, then you understand the whole understanding of Israel. Now, to bring more intrigue to the story and to the content of the E grouping of people, the E group versus the A paternal and the B paternal Y-DNA group in this region is not the same, and it wouldn't go to the Hamitic group as an inheritance or as a trace source of being from this region. Remember, this region is connected to Africa. So we are gonna just go down here. Is there another chart? Hmm. So on some of these charts, I gotta look real quick because some of the like our people migration when our people did the Bantu expansion, they really heavily populated a region. So you often see on these charts like remnant populations of native Kemetic groupings of people. So you have the Japhetic people, you have the Afro-Asiatic people dealing with the Habesha, the Edomites, and then you have the other association of the Afro-Asiatic groupings of Shemitic Ishmaelites. So you have these groups of people that are also hurting the remnant population of the ancient Canaanites and stuff. They are there, but the percentages and the population are not that that overwhelming. So you have Shemitic Edomites, you know, with a bigger population than many groups of East African Hamitic groups of people. And I was looking for a chart that would show that, but I don't see any chart on here that would tell you about the L0 maternal group. So this is a mtDNA group of Africa, and it's just dealing mostly with the Shemitic groupings of people, and then you have like these mutated groups right here. So M1 and U6 is something that I have been looking into, and some Israelites tells me that their uh, maternal line is from M1, and I've been looking into the M1 and the L5 and the L6. Other than that, I know the other groups of people. So once again, this is just dealing with the mtDNA and just showing you the massive percentages or sample counts of Shemitic Israelite women versus Shemitic Edomite women versus Shemitic Ishmaelite women. So once again, we have to remember that uh, this is Styria, Africa, right here, the Near East region, and then everything after Egypt is your inner Africa region. So the other part is the Levant. So when the media talk about the Levant region, they may include, um, let's see, some parts of North Africa, Egypt, and then Saudi Arabia, and maybe Iran. But the understanding of that region is basically from the Great Lakes down the Nile to Iran. You have the Iran border and Turkey border. Those of the other areas that are excluded from our inheritance and from the Levant region. So once you understand that this is the original parts of the Garden of Eden, then you are better off. So let's get into that information real quick. Uh, did I lose it? No. Okay, here we go. So we are working, or we are looking at Genesis 2 KJV. We go down to 10, and this is the area to where you find out the information about Eden and Shemitic people in general, but the whole geography of Israel, uh, content and inheritance. So, because yes, Abraham lived in, the Iraq region, and he had his relatives living in the region in Iraq and Assyria. So you have to be like, okay, um, why isn't his DNA tied to um, that region alone versus another region? Well, once again, we are still talking about the content of the DNA protein and then the movement. So when you understand that he was a nomad, and when he settled, his protein counts built, and the same with Ishmael and Midian and his nephew Aram, then you understand the whole things about the E grouping of DNA, the haplogroup E. So at 10, it tells you, and a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it was parted and became into four heads. The name of the first is Pison, that that is it, which compasseth the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold, and the gold of the land is good. There is Bethlehem, and the onyx stone. And the name of the second river is Gahan. The same is it that compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia. And the name of the third river is Hiddekel. That is it which goeth toward the east of Assyria. And the fourth river is Euphrates. So when you understand that content, you can better understand the whole layout of the DNA and the people group dealing with the haplogroup E. So when people go, but there's J and I and R groupings of people living in Israel. Well, you're talking about the landmass of Israel that isn't, once again, is just half of the amount of land that it used to be versus, when Israel was a kingdom and when that region was Palestine. So when you understand that the media, when they talk about the Levant, they talk about, you know, that little part of North Africa, going into Saudi Arabia and Iran, and that's it. They don't even include, you know, uh, Syria into the conversation sometimes because they want Syria to be a part of Turkey so bad. So the Levant region starts in the Great Lakes region, and then it crosses over into Saudi Arabia, into Iraq, and the border is right there, Iran. The Iran and Syria part. So you have Turkey, Turkey being, one of the borders of this region. So so that's the greater inheritance of Israel, not this tiny piece of land. So, and I like this chart because it show you different ethnic groups around here, and a lot of these groups that you see are Bantu groups. As you can see, like right here, this orange goes into like a breakdown of one of the branches. So you have a big sample pool of L2A1A slash B. And then the next group is a L2A1. And then, so these are like signature groups in that area. And then you have split percentages of different branches. That's where you get the L2 right here at the bottom. L2 other. So L1A is dealing with the Ishmaelite women. L3, all the L3s are dealing with the Shemitic Edomite women. So we got that out the way. That. So now we get into this part. All the fancy information, eventually, if y'all ever get into looking into DNA, the genome, the mapping, you'll come across all this interesting information. So once again, they they go, and this is not like my conspiracy. This is not me, overthinking something. But a while back, you used to Google search E1B1A. It'll just come up E1B1A, and all of a sudden, after a while, you start to get all these defining mutations and the descendants. You have these markers that they use. So up here, you see what they did. So E-V38 former E3A slash E1B1A. So this is what they are trying to do to keep us from researching our inheritance and who we are. Because at a certain point right here, this right here is also referring to Ishmaelite information. So you have to be careful with when they do this E3A, because what that is saying is when you also break it down in another way, is dealing with E1A, 1A, 1A. So you gotta be careful when they sneak this like that. But often you'll see this right here, like I said before, E-M2, and then you have this one, E-M329, and then you have all these others. Because sometimes they like, oh, we can't. And right here, so once again, this is the Hermetic paternal haplogroup for Ham. The A groups and the B groups. These are your native Canaanites and Hamitic people. The Kosen, the Sem people, and Mbuti people. So let's see if I could. So here go a example of how they would do it when they break down. Let's see. Let me see something. Okay, so here we go. So all these right here are. Let's see. No, this is not the one. Well, there's another Wikipedia page that shows you a bigger tree. So these branches are very big, and often when I show you the different charts, like if I do show you another chart, something similar to this, okay, all those chartings are done by these group of scientists. Like on the last video, you had all these sub-Sahara grouping of tribes and sample of a haplogroup results. All these scientists collected that information during this time period, and some of them updated their information, some of them haven't. Some other um, genome scientists came behind them and updated some of the information, and you can find a lot of this in like these big PDF setups of genome studies and stuff. And eventually, I'll show you one of those pages. If not right here, right now, but eventually you'll see what I'm talking about, because like all these graphs, this graph that I just showed you, this graph comes from one of those scientists. So they put together the graphs, and normally when I go to their research page, I just go there to look at highlighted information that I want to look at, and then I download these graphs just in case, a Israelite brother or sister have some misunderstandings or concerns about something. Then I could just, open my gallery and refer to a chart and go, yeah, there's Israelites there. I know there's Israelite there because the sample chart shows it. So for Israelites that are debating if there's Israelites in Turkey, yes, there's Israelites in Turkey. Is it a lot? No, percentages, small percentages, but there's Israelites in Turkey. Are there Israelites in Iran? Yes, there's Israelites in Iran. So, other than that, let's continue to go into this information. So, we have a clear understanding that E1B1A slash E-M2 slash E-V38 are Hebrew Israelite groupings of people dealing with the men. So we get into um, the other people. So hopefully this is the this okay. Is this what I want though? Okay, we'll take it. So this is your J group, haplogroup J. So this is dealing with Caucasian people. Caucasian people. So when you understand the DNA in the nations of people, you understand that you have Hamitic people dealing with the AB grouping, and then the next group of people is dealing with the Shemitic people. So the Shemitic people is dealing with haplogroup C all the way to haplogroup F. So C to F is Shemitic, and then G, the beginning group right here, this group right here, is supposed to be the beginning branch of the Japhetic race of people. The only problem with this is they reverse this order. So this is how you slowly come to an understanding about what they've been trying to cover and uncover. When they cover up something, you basically start to reveal, unveil something that they really don't think you'll be able to understand right away. But eventually, if you like me and you keep studying and looking at this information, you see it eventually. And so haplogroup G is the beginning group of the Japhetic Caucasian group of people. So this J group is a grouping dealing with a combination. They tend to put IJK together because these are close alleles groups of gene grouping, but at the same time they created subclades for all these haplogroups dealing with Japhetic people. When you know for a fact that the Hamitic people have like a two group setup, they could have just um, um, put those two groups together if they really wanted to, and put a notation about it being a ancestor, and then the next group a descendant of a descendant, and that's all they had to do. But they decided to do two different setups of Hamitic groups of people. The same with Shemitic people. The interesting thing is, I think the Shemitic people was their case study to be able to create these multiple groups of Japhetic people because of the ghost genes. I'm just saying the ghost genes because of the interesting mutations that occurs in the Shemitic group of C. There's a very interesting uh, mutation within C and D, but C is the most interesting one. And then when you get into the maternal grouping of the same grouping of C and D on the men haplogroup side, there's another interesting mutation, and that's because if you understand the Bible story of Lot and of his daughters raping him to have offsprings, then you'll better understand how and why that information and those things tend to be the way they are with those groups on both sides. So that's the interesting thing. I remember um, way before I got into all of this and even the physical traits, when I found out that the Chinese people and the Japanese people was the children of Lot, at that time I wasn't into all this new information, so I was basically, going off of what other Israelites and camps said about the children a lot. So that information basically, kept me in a bubble, not being able to really, you know, double check that information. I just assumed it because of the way they look, their behavior, and so on. So I was like, okay, these people are, Ammon and Moab because of the behavior, the way they look, and stuff like that. So um, later on, I found out that the Chinese people, a good amount of the Chinese people, and a good amount of the Japanese people are just extended groups of Japhetic Asian people. So Japhet has a big grouping of people. As we know, that he was supposed to be enlarged as well. So his people group should be as big like they are right now. So so these are the groups of people that are in the northern region of North Africa and the Near East region of the so-called Middle East or Near East region. So these are your Caucasian people. Now, so you have G, and then you have I, you have H, you have a few other groups. So a lot of these groups of Japhetic people that are in the front end of this grouping of people, these are your pale complexion people. And then once you get to K, so you even if you want to, you even say J and K. J and K is when you start to see the complexion color of the Japhetic group of people change. Now, once again, this is because Edos or Elis, so they have unique basal Elis or Elos that are helping them to create different complexion type versus them being people that mix heavily. So even with this J, you see a lot of people in often in Hollywood or in the media, they tend to portray a certain look about a region. India has like beautiful brown and black people as well, but you tend to see a tannish color of an Indian to pale complexion type of Indian person. You have the same thing that happens with China. They have dark complexion people in China versus your Caucasian pale complexion Chinese person. So this is that whole group of people being Japhet. All those are people of Japhet. So you can see the different complexion types starting at J, and then it gets more profound at K. So K, in my opinion, in my understanding of the fats, this K group would be your original group of Japhetic people. So you have K, N, or R1. Is R1 on here? I don't think they put R1. So this G group goes all the way up till T. So yeah, G to T. And you have the same situation. So What they do is basically they tell you there's these all these different groups of Japhetic or Caucasian people, but then all of a sudden you start to see too much hue in the people group, like K and R and Q. You start and T. You start to see darker complexion Caucasian people. So of course they're gonna reverse the order from pale to dark, and then they started to do something off and on. They start to um, say that K is another alternative group that is closely related to T. The same with S and M. So after a while, you have to understand that that's the other cover up that they tried to promote with DNA, but they couldn't. And so when people go, this is pseudo science, pseudo science, they have to understand what um, information the DNA experts was trying to cover up versus um, science that is fake. But we have to understand that everything have elements and protein and mineral counts to them. That's how the Most High created everything. So that's how we're able to understand science as it is. So it's not pseudoscience. If um, Albert Einstein created the atomic bomb, so and yes, um, Albert Einstein was an Edomite. He's a part of the small percentage of the grouping of Edomite people that purposely, I believe, um, integrated with other Caucasian groups of people, a specific maternal group of people, and they purposely mixed themselves to become a pale complexion group of people. So, a long time ago, back in the day when I was, maybe not a long time ago, it been a while, so a while back, when I was getting into the physical trait stuff and the so called recessive genes, one of the problems that I was having was um, I kept on seeing Caucasian people with dominant traits. And I was like, how is that possible? Um, all the white people should have recessive traits. And from that point, I was like, well, there got to be two different groups of white people. So I had to stop my research with physical traits and recessive stuff because a lot of the information was not making sense to me. So that's when I started to enter into studying DNA, Y DNA, and then I found out that there's two different groups of white people, and certain traits are dominant still on white people, and that's when um, I heavily became better understanding of DNA and other things. So Albert Einstein is a Shemitic Edomite with E1B1B um, DNA in him. So so now we have an understanding, I hope, of the J group. This will be your grouping of people in that region of the Near East, in right above the Near East, that Caucasus Mountain region, and these are the same related people to the people that are so-called Native Americans. So you have some Arawak people that are Shemitic Moabite people dealing with the C group, and then the other groupings of the Native American people in the Americas would be dealing with your Q and your R group. and those are related to these people. So, no, I do not fully support the 12 tribe chart of Israel of the Americas because certain groups of people are Japhetic Caucasian and or Japhetic Asian and or Shemitic Moabite people. So unless they are uh, well understood in their family past of being descendants of slaves from um, certain regions in Africa, then they could, better explain to me their case or their point of being a Israelite. Other than that, um, our spirit can also bear witness to Edom, and we tend not to accept or acknowledge that witness being bared to Edom, but automatically we get let our spirit bear witness to um, so-called Israelites that are Hispanic, Latinos, Arawak, and so on. So that's where I just rely on DNA information to better explain exactly who these people are. So we done with that. What else? Um, was this something? Yeah. So this is the point that I wanted. Jacob went to Egypt. This is obvious. And then the other point was there another point? All right. Some of the limpa stuff. So real quick, so the limba was the group of people that they used to collect the DNA information on, and they wanted to use it to um, do some type of conspiracy on putting together Caucasian groups of people along with Hamitic groups and a Edomite group of people and labeled them as Israelites versus Bantu-based groups of people as Israel. So they use the tribe name, and then they use the surrounding area. So you have all these other groups of Bantu people, and um, not just Bantu people, but you have Japhetic groupings of people. So when you understand the people grouping that they dipped into, then you understand that J group, at least the J group that they went into with Africa, the J group and the R group. Um, these are some dark complexion groups of people in Africa, especially that R group. So, so I'm pretty sure after a while, the scientists, the scientists themselves, got confused with people groups, especially with the the type of information that they found out with the E1B1A groups of people also being in East and South Africa, as well in West Africa, as well um, in the Americas. Then they was very disappointed, and not just that, but they decided to lump together all these other people groups, and then they go, okay, these are the Kohen people, and these are the other Jewish groups of people, and according to DNA information and science, all those people stretch across different ethnic groups, and not just different ethnic groups, but different races of people. So um, they once they tried to cover, they revealed something, and what they revealed was um, pockets of dark complected, Javetic, Caucasian people. So, and these are not people that been mixing and mixing. You do have, um, I believe, the bastards, some parts of the bastards, and the Afrikaans. They tended to mix their population with a certain Caucasian group, but this information tells you that there's also a dark complexion group of Japhetic people, as we already talked about within K and T. Let's see, where is it? Within K and T. So K K is a dark complexion group. This would be your Solomon Island and Oceania people, the people with the blue eyes and the blonde hair with the dark skin. And then the Q group is also the people that everybody go, those are the copper tone Native American people, but those are Japhetic people. They are not Israelites. They are not um, African Americans. They are just Japhetic people. So uh, technically, the irony is technically uh, the people, the Native Americans, the majority of the Native American Arawak people are the close relatives of many of the white Caucasian people anyway. Even though they are darker in complexion, they are still the same people group. And then you have a small pocket and a remnant of Shemitic Moabite people that are Aboriginal Australian people, and that's about it. Other than that, there's no Israelite native of the Americas. I'm sorry to report that to everybody, but that's the case. So, was there any more information? So, so the limbo thing is really just a hoax. It was just a hoax, and I sort of wanted to have a better page to look at. So, so some of these people could be Israelites, but some of them are also just dark complexion Japhetic people. Let's see, where was thought I had a limba page. Okay, so the limba, the limba, wawimba, or the Imwene, Imwenye people, and then you have these languages. So often, also, the people groups of many Bantu tribes, they also are labeled as their language, either by the most popular words of the from the language, or they are named after the language itself for the grouping of people. So you tend to have um, people that are named after the language they are spoke, which is commonplace in Africa. DNA testing. So look at all these people they try to group in together. So and they go your T group. They even a T group. And remember, like I said, this T group is also a dark complexion group of people too, because this T group is just an alternative, close relative to K, and the same with S and M. So that's the only cover up they trying to do. Now they do break down the information, so hopefully I could get into doing the whole thing about the hoax in general with deeper detail on my other channel on the Operation Gadite. Other than that, um, this is the basic overall story into my my screen name, and my channel name. So the reason why I call myself Israelite Dna is because I am a part of the tribes of Israel. So and yes, on my other channel on Operation Gadite, I disclose my information of my uh, DNA results. So I get into talk about my DNA and like John Jones, a UFC fighter, he did his admixture, and I went into the admixture thing, and I went into my admixture and my YDNA results, because some DNA sites or companies, they only do the admixture versus the YDNA and the mtDNA. So you would want to look up a DNA source or a company that has all those available to you when you are doing your DNA. And so, other than that, you don't have to do your DNA. You know, I'm not telling everybody to go out to do their DNA. It was something that I had to do to better understand the studies that I was looking into. And I grew up without a dad, so I had to find out, you know, a lot of stuff about my family, my dad's side of the family, because my mom never told me, and she tend to hide stuff from that side of my history from me. So I had to go the other way around, you know, look at paperwork, a paper trail. I had to get into DNA, and now I'm better off with knowing a lot more than what I did before. So that's for people that want to get into all that information. Go for it. It's a decent peace of mind, and it's a different energy to have to bounce off people or to bounce over people when you know all these things and they go, what are you talking about? Or are you talking about the chart? Are you talking about the chart of Israel? Well, I have a chart of Israel, but I'm not talking about that one West chart. So um, these are different things that I'm talking about. So this is what I'm getting into to prepare my people about on this channel. You know, light DNA information, not heavy, not stuff that you have to, you know, go, okay, I'm lost. Hopefully, nobody is lost. Hopefully, I properly explain everything and edify people with some of the questions that they had. You know, I'm not expecting to gain people um, trust or anything else. You know, hopefully, you'll go, well, he sounds stupid, but to double check what the stupid person says, I gotta Google this, Google that, and figure it out on my own. You know. So, with that being the case, once again, I would like to say all praise to the Most High Yahweh and to His Son, my brother, Amashiach Yahushai. Peace and blessings to my brothers and sisters from the Israelite tribes.